Just going to do a quick review of what the afternoon looks like. That was an amazing morning. It was really beautiful to hear all of the work people are doing. I know my boss, Aisha, said at times she got choked up. Such beautiful things that people shared with each other. So that was awesome. So what our day looks like now. We're going to talk about the schools. And some of you are selling to schools and some of you want to. So we want to share with you what it's looked like our third year of working with schools. And I have a lot of feedback from the food service directors that I want to share with you all. And then, so that'll be brief. And then we go into what we call open space. So people can choose topics that they really want to talk about. And then other people might want to talk about that too. So you'll just self-select into small groups. And when Maria comes back in the room, I'll ask her, oh, sorry, Maria, I'm not sure which rooms that'll be in, but when we get to that part of the day, maybe you can show where people could go.
Yeah, that's a hallway we can pull in.
The hallway, the patio here. Okay. So be thinking about, as you heard people talk this morning, if there was something that you really want to have a chance to sit down and talk with someone about. Last year, there was a group that wanted to talk about water issues. There was a group that wanted to talk about seeds. There was a group that wanted to talk about youth mentorship. What were the other topics? Oh yeah, record keeping, bookkeeping. So as you think about that, you could find other folks here that have knowledge and could share or have questions, and you can get together. This morning it sounded like the carrots was a interesting theme that went across. So, and then, yeah, and the cold frames, everyone's experiences with the cold frames, you know, that kind of went across. So we're going to talk about schools, then we'll break into small groups, and we're going to have to be on time because there will be a bus pulling up here at 4 o'clock at the front door, and the staff at La Montanita Cooperative Development Center will be waiting for us. So that's the afternoon, and then dinner, and back here. And if you need any of that info, again, it's in your packet. So I have some slides, and we'll start talking about the schools. Some of the background on AFSC, we've been trying to get food to our kids via the schools since 2007. And the thinking behind this is the children who eat school lunch are often on free and reduced lunch because they're living at the poverty level or below the poverty level. So these are kids in our community who don't have access to local organic food. So the schools was a great way to try to bring our food in. And it's a win-win because the farmers then that sell to the schools can count on that contract, can count on those sales, and get really large quantity of sales as well. So in 2007, an Albuquerque senator was able to get funding for the Albuquerque public schools to buy from local farmers. And the project we did in the South Valley from 2009 to 2012 was specifically about getting food to schools. So we built infrastructure like cold frames, and we started making the brokering to the schools. In fact, I used to go deliver the food to the schools in my van and show up next to all the semi-trucks at APS and deliver the food from the South Valley. What she did, we felt like was very successful, and we didn't want to just be at Albuquerque Public Schools. We wanted to expand it to more communities. So we began organizing harvest meals for our state legislators so they could learn from her about what she was doing. They ate food grown by the local farmers. The farmers ate with the legislators, so they're sitting with the farmers. We even had school kids come sometimes. And what the senator said was, of her entire work in the state legislature, her most popular piece of legislation was the farm to school legislation that she did. And that's what we found too. So we pushed to expand her program into more places. And in 2015, we hired a lobbyist. She's a shepherdess from Taos. You might know Patricia Quintana, very knowledgeable about the legislator. And Senator Feldman and Representative Paul Taylor helped us get this through. And we had total bipartisan support. We had Republicans carrying the bill and Democrats. People testified in support. Some of you all came and testified. Raise your hand if you were a farmer that came to the legislature. Yeah, Bardo, Mario, yeah, folks came. We had some of our Quakers, because we're a Quaker organization, came in support. We had Ezequieros that came. And the idea of this funding, because I know there's another pot of funding that's similar to this, but we have a different method. We got $30,000 recurring, and it was targeted to school districts that actually wanted to buy local and had farmers in their area. So we love that the other legislation similar to ours goes to all the school districts. But we also saw the limitations of that because a lot of schools don't want to go through the hassle of buying local, so they were sending the money back. And that has an impact on the legislators when they see money sent back. So we targeted ours for schools that wanted to buy local. Of course, we've had budget cuts since 2015, so that the money has gone down a little bit. So what I'm going to report back on is for the last 3 school years, we're actually in the 3rd school year, the money goes from the state legislature to the New Mexico Department of Ag, not the PED like the other funding. The Department of Ag is a little more willing to work with it. But then they came to AFSC and said, you figure out where it goes, which we weren't expecting. We thought we were done. We're like, yay, we got the money, we're done. They're like, no, now you tell us where it goes. So for the last 3 years, AFSC has fronted the money to the schools, 30 grand, and then we wait to get the receipts back. And then we have to go in July to the legislature and get our money back. So that's what we've been doing. But we've also been trying to support the farmers in being able to sell to the schools. So we've helped supply some of you all with brokers. We've done food safety things. We've helped with liability insurance, even buying seeds, packaging materials, cold frames so that you can grow during the school year. Because we know the school year is August to May, and a big chunk of that, you need to put your food in a cold frame. So our first year, we partnered with Española Public Schools, Las Cruces, Wagon Mound, and Taos. We identified them as all willing to buy local. And this year, we're adding Jemez Pueblo to get that funding from the state. And so we create these like documents with the schools saying that the money has to legally only be used to buy local. So this is our 3rd year of creating those documents. So let's go through some of those schools and what happened. Las Cruces has about 24,000 students. The first year, they purchased just over $8,000. And then last year, they purchased just over $6,000. This year, we've given them $10,000, and we're really hoping they'll spend every penny on the local farms, like Shahid and Mario's, and hopefully maybe Solar's farms as well. Things they like to buy: salad, spinach, root crops like carrots, cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, bell peppers, melons. Those are some of the big sellers. The food service director is really supportive. She really wants to buy local, and she's willing to work with stuff. She had some challenges with orders that didn't arrive, some delivery challenges and some invoice challenges. So we're working on that. It's really tough. Yeah. What Maria is saying, there's no central place to drop the food off. So these folks are delivering school to school to school. And that's a lot. And it's helpful that Shahid has a refrigerated vehicle. All right. So we'll go north for a minute. In Taos, only 3,000 some students. And the first year they purchased just over 2,000. And the second year they purchased almost 3,000. This year we've given them $7,000. So we're hoping that they'll really up their sales. I think that Stephen mentioned the blue corn. He showed pictures of the blue corn. I met with the food service director and told her, you should try the blue corn for the kids. I have a kid, and if she sells some blue muffins or something, I think she'd eat it. So we kind of persuaded her to go back to a traditional food in Taos, and she did. And it sounds like she's still buying it, so that's great. And Patrick is saying this is the actual corn that we grew at the AFSC training farm that went to Taos. That's yours? Oh, it's your dad's, okay. Because we also grew it at the training farm. That's Stephen's corn. It's beautiful. They also like red chili, green chili, kale, spinach, lettuce, and blackberries. And some of the food we were aggregating from Albuquerque, so this is part of that network, to get it up there. We had a change in the food service director in Taos, and that was a little bit tough because she was used to paying really cheap prices for food that's been brought in from around the country or around the world. She wasn't used to buying local, so she was kind of shocked at the price. But we've worked with her, and we're back to them buying again this year. Española has approximately 5,000 students. The first year they spent more than $10,000 from La Cosecha del Norte co-op. The big purchase was red chili. They usually buy 1,050 pounds of red chili a year. And the co-op couldn't provide all of that, but it's a huge amount. It's kept under lock and key. Everything else can go to the main warehouse, but not the red chili. Like it's protected. When Patrick walked into the office of the food service director, the color and the smell were apparent when he walked in with it, and he got mobbed with the sample of red chili. But yeah, they're very protective of their red chili. And sorry to the folks in the South, but they were really happy to get northern New Mexico red chili, local red chili, not the hatch stuff. They wanted their local. All right, Wagon Mound. Sophia is here, and she has been the reason why this money has been going to the Wagon Mound Public Schools. There are 67 students enrolled. First year they spent almost 500. Last year less, but this year again we're hoping they'll spend 500. Sophia mentioned when she presented that they got an award because they have such an amazing program in their school with local food. They have a salad bar. They have a garden that Sophia has created and kept going there. So food is moving from Albuquerque and the garden Wagon Mound. And I think Sophia even goes around the state picking up food and bringing it to the kids.
So all over the place. So then I hook it up to the morning message so the kids know where their vegetables and their fruits are coming from, and it's usually all over northern New Mexico.
Nice. So Sophia, you didn't hear, she was saying she even does the morning message at school so that children know where their food came from. Her kids are really eating local. I think they even want radishes and turnips.
Turnips, they love
turnips.
That's
so
one of their main.
I've just never heard of a kid that asks for turnips. So.
Well, you have to tell them it's the white turnips because everybody's used to the ones with the purple and they don't like that. But the kids really like those curry turnips, and that's their snack. That's
white
their
turnips.
Snack.
Nice. So this year I wanted to share, we did a survey. So we're going to be really candid as AFSC. We're not here to give you a glossy, perfect picture. Sadly, our schools were not able to spend all of the money, and so money got returned to the state legislature. So we do not want that to happen this year, so we surveyed the schools to find out why. Why didn't they spend the money on local food? So first I'll start with what they said was awesome about the program. So the quality, they all spoke about the quality of the food. It's so much more delicious. It's so much fresher for the students. They hold up longer than the commercial suppliers. So when it comes to competing with these huge agribusinesses and suppliers, your quality, we know this, is better and it lasts longer than what they can give them. They talked about learning opportunities. They thought this was really helpful in children from 3 to 18, where in Wagon Mound have a fresh salad bar. I think Las Cruces has a fresh salad bar. So this is a chance to talk to kids about eating local and eating healthy. And it's been brought up a lot today about diabetes in our communities and obesity, and that's a real problem with our youth, so this is important for them. So you can kind of see, I'm not going to read this word for word, but some of their nutrition specialists were incorporating the food into classroom activities, like a carrot activity with the kids, eating the local carrots. They love supporting the local farmers. These food service directors really get that they are helping their local farmers and their local economy, and that's why they want to do this program. It's more work for them. It's more paperwork. It's easier to order from a semi-truck that can bring everything, including bananas and things we can't grow. So they're putting in the extra work, and it's because they really want to support the local farmers. So there's some statistics in there. And they felt like working with AFSC was user-friendly. And a lot of that I want to give credit to Maria. She's been the main person talking to the food service directors, and she has such a great way of connecting with them. So they found that it went well. That was the strengths. Yay, Maria. Okay, so now for the challenges. Why didn't they spend the money? Because this year we really want every dollar to be spent. So the first thing I told us was,
the availability of the funds, that they weren't getting the money until like November. And of course, you who farm know that there's a lot more food available in August than there is in November. So that was a big problem that we heard over and over again. So this year, it was our goal to get the funds sooner, and so some of our schools started getting the money in August, which is awesome, they don't start till August. And some of them will be getting the money this month in September. So we're much earlier this year. So we really heard them on this, and this was an issue that AFSC had to work out with NMDA and had to work out with the state legislature to figure out what was the amounts and get it to people. So that's good. So we fixed that one. But that was, you'll see a lot of these quotes are, make the funds available as soon as possible, don't wait till the winter.
And I think at this point we have signed for everyone.
So Maria was saying at this point, all the schools have signed a contract with AFSC, understanding how much we're giving them and that it can only be used for local food. So there's legal contracts that have to happen, and those have to go to their board, and their board only meets once a month, and so you can see how it gets really delayed. So we made it a goal to get this done this year, and it's happened. Another challenge was deliveries, and I think everyone's hearing that and seeing that, but it might be especially hard for the South. So deliveries can be really hard in terms of getting refrigerated trucks or getting food there because things are perishable. Inconsistent availability of what kind of produce you're going to have and how much. I think we all struggle with that, with production consistency and what's available. The schools make a menu by the month, so their nutrition folks know what they need for that month. And so if we're saying, yeah, we'll have salad, and then we don't, then they have to kind of scramble and find another buyer, a vendor to get it from. So that can be hard for them. And then another one was just trouble with the farmer invoices. So there's one quote, I kept names out because I don't want people to feel blamed, but I do want to be like truthful. But she says further down on this one, inaccurate farmer invoices, it's almost comical. She said every farmer she's worked with, it's almost comical that the invoices are wrong. Even something simple like accidentally writing 2016 when you mean 2017 can be flagged in an audit, so because they're using state money. So little things like that actually become big problems. So let's all just know that, like, be really careful with your invoices, that they're accurate, because that's been a challenge for the schools. So now feedback from farmers, and I'm going to open this up to folks here. Raise your hand if you sold to a school this last semester. Nice, awesome. So what we've heard from farmers, and I'll kind of, in these next few minutes, turn it over to you all. We've got 15 minutes. Farmers are saying sometimes our biggest sales are the school sales. I know that was true for like La Cosecha Co-op up north for a while. It was like their biggest sales were the school sales. Sometimes the price point is low, but because the quantity is high, it helps. Slow down. This is slow for me. Okay. The quantity, needing the quantity for the schools is hard. And this is where aggregation and cooperation really helps each other out, and hopefully building our statewide network can really help. That when people can go together on quantity, you all win. You all get the sale. So a good thing to know about the schools, the demand is high. So I don't think you'll be competing against each other when you sell to schools. I think that there's enough. And if we can work together, that would be really good. Other things farmers said, hard to figure out the transportation, especially if you're aggregating. In other words, getting food from multiple farms. How do you do that? So the transportation is an issue, and when we go on the tour today, La Montanita has some things to offer around transportation. Everyone wants to do it again. People say, yeah, I'll do it again next year. Need to understand what crops to plant, when to plant. And then spreading out the sales evenly among farmers can be tricky too. So that's some of the feedback we heard. This photograph is from our statewide farmer gathering year 2. So I see some folks in the room, like I think Jean and Stephen and different folks that are in this picture. It's a while back. Okay. So you know we have a massive budget shortfall in New Mexico, but we've been able to protect the money. It's been whittled down a little bit. We're at, I think, $23,000. But the food service directors want to do it again. So this year, we will be getting funds. We have been getting funds to Las Cruces, 10,000, I think. Taos, I think, is 7. Is it 7? Espanola, I think, is 7,000. Wagon Mound is 500 to 1,000, depending on how much they can do. And then Hamus, too. We want to work with Hamus on what amount that they could do, but a couple thousand for Hamus. So this last thing to share is that we have been managing the money for this is our 3rd school year, and it goes in 3-year cycles. So the New Mexico Department of Ag doesn't want to figure out who the food service directors are and doesn't want to front the funds. So we took it on for 3 years. But I don't know if we can keep doing that, and we're willing to find another entity that would want to manage this project and front the money and sign the contracts. And obviously it can't be farmers, because that would be a conflict of interest. So if you have thoughts on that, we've been brainstorming maybe who would want to do this. It might be like maybe a community foundation or something like that.
But just so that you know that we're in our 3rd year, and it's been a lot of work on AFSC staff, but we hope it bore a lot of fruit for farmers to get your food into the schools, and definitely for our kids to be eating your food. So with that, I want to open it up for especially folks who have sold to schools to share, or if you haven't and have questions because you want to sell to schools. And we have a few minutes to do that. So I think Maria wants to start.
Is there any way that we can increase the price for schools? Because, for example, I know that I can grow and I can sell 100 pounds of lettuce by my own, and I know that I can sell it to restaurants, farmers markets, and the CSAs in El Paso at a higher price. No? So, is there any way that the schools can pay more for salad, for spinach, because we still need to like deliver it to every school, no? So that's we have to pay that too. So if the price is lower, and then we have to pay an extra for delivering, and so I don't know. That's the question.
It's hard to answer. So
You set your own prices. Whether or not the food service directors will pay it's hard to know. And that's partly because they are used to paying an artificial price for food. It's a price that exploits farm workers, is monocropped, is shipped from somewhere else. It's not local. But it's important that you're able to be economically viable. So some farmers have chosen crops where by choosing a specific crop that does best for restaurants, that makes more sense, and then there's crops that do better for schools. That's one way. But we don't set the prices at AFSC. We kind of know in general what people pay for local food. So there's a range that people are used to. You could go higher. I just don't know what would happen if you did. Do you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to say that the primary reason that AFSC went this route in securing the funds is specifically so the school districts can pay the higher price point, the more appropriate, to reflect the real cost. So that's going to be, and like Sai was mentioning, this pilot project, this 3-year program, was to start. It was like a little bit of not to grease the wheels, but to pilot. I mean, to pilot for you to build relationships with the buyers. So that's going to be something that you guys have to work out. In terms of handling your business, you need to know what that costs. So you're factoring in that trip to the school for delivery, whereas other customers are not doing that. So you need to factor that into, that's your business, but that really is having a conversation, having a relationship with the school buyers so they know what a fair price is. And this is kind of the slow little work that we're doing is getting people to recognize the true cost of food, and which is why we have to have a subsidy. But this is part of that work. But it really, if you're not getting if you're losing money, that shouldn't be the way. I mean, the whole reason that money was set aside from the legislature was so that the schools can pay a fair price to the farmer. So just work on that relationship and yeah, and ID crops that I mean, whole value. I mean, I know that's a big thing that we've asked, not asked for, encouraged our leafy greens. A, because they grow better during the school season, and B, it's just a higher value crop. It's light. You don't need to spend as much on distribution. There's just a lot of reasons why the leafy greens fit well in that category versus, you know, watermelons, which is going to take truckloads, and you're competing with guys from all over the, you know, not just the border, but I mean, you're just competing all over. So it's tweaking your business, finding out what you can sell at what price. So
Shahi, did you want to speak, and then Casey?
I guess I can peripherally speak from what I know about ACN, which is, you know, the farmer co-op. So basically, the overall organization of ACN, its first job was to hire like a grant writer that basically got grants from all these different organizations, both large and small. And as farmers selling to the network, we commit that 25% of whatever we sell goes directly back to the network in order to pay for those services and stuff. So, and then we set our prices. But lettuce mix, for instance, we sell for $8 a pound. But after the 25% cut is taken out by the organization, then we get maybe like $6, $6.25 a pound for it. But then all I do is literally cut the lettuce, put it in a bag, and take it to ACN. And that 25% that I didn't get is paying for the washing, is creating jobs doing that too, is paying for the delivery, is paying for the coordination, so that way it's out of my hands. So even though I'm taking a price cut, it's worth it. And then through focusing more on the public health aspect of getting foods into schools, we also get, APS gets its own state allotment for funds, which helps subsidize some of those costs. But also when we go to places like Presbyterian, they offer these grants where it helps subsidize a little bit too. So the school isn't paying the whole cost up front. It's paying what it can afford, a little bit more than they otherwise would be paying. But then we find a buffer to cover the rest of that cost. That way we're still getting our $6.25 at the end of the day, and the network is still getting its $1.50, $2 to pay for everything else. So we've somehow managed, again, by joining together, by committing a part of our sales go back to the organization, and through that grant writer, we're able to then kind of balance the books in such a way that the farmers are still getting a fair price. We're creating jobs in the kitchen to do it. The farmers aren't responsible for the delivery and all that, while still allowing the schools to pay enough within their budget and the funds they get. So, but that took years to develop. That was 6 or 7 years of like sorting it out and figuring it out.
So I'd like to speak a little bit. My background is actually retail. I have about 28 years in purchasing from farmers. So I know that on the retail side, there's a margin interest. We got to make money. Like the refrigeration, the employees, the box store, everything comes from the profit that we make from these products that you sell us. So that's the hat that I'm wearing right now. And so when we approached LCPS, the Las Cruces Public Schools, we actually had, even though the money was allotted, we had some cafeteria managers say that they didn't want to purchase because they felt like it was too much. And what is our mixed salad price? $5. $5 a pound for schools. So we take that 25%, so the farmer ends up with $3.75. And that was the price they said was too high. So it's a challenge for us. What we talk about is scale. Like we need to figure out what we can grow collectively, cooperatively, and market those very specific items and figure out how to get the cost down on production and become more efficient with delivery and packaging. I know as the person that delivers these boxes, when I have 16 different sizes of boxes of lettuce to deliver to the schools, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me, and It's a challenge for them to receive it. Like all of that stuff, as we think about what Saida just said, okay, this is subsidized right now. So it's easier for them to purchase. When it's not, we're not going to be in the market telling them, okay, we'll pay more. You know, we do have to take advantage of the successes and say, we produce a better quality product. So it shouldn't be the same as lettuce coming from China. We know we produce a better quality product. I know because when I bring in the local, they put that way in the back because they know they can wait 10 days before they even have to bring it out to the front. So they'll bring in stuff that's coming in later, and they put that out before they put our stuff out because it lasts longer. So we need to figure out how to leverage our successes and become more as a collective. Like we need to identify maybe lesser items that we can all produce and get something from in order to get the price that we feel is fair, because our fare is different than their fare. I'm talking from a person who's now growing and understands, like, I need more money. But I remember when somebody used to come in my store and try to sell me this, I had to say, like, well, I can make, all right, so I buy lettuce from you, I can make 15 cents per pound. And if I buy it from my distributor, I can make 35 cents per pound. What do you think I want to buy? Like, I love you, but you don't love me. You know, that's how it is. Like when you look at that, so I would still buy from you something. And it's kind of like what we're getting. We're getting a marginal sell out of love, but we're not really in the competitive market. And once we get into the competitive market, we don't really compete with those guys. They can just continue to lower their price until we go out of business. So we have to be thinking about that. What are we going to do? Not right now, but we're going to do the year when these funds are no longer available. How do we collectively aggregate our product statewide or maybe even regionally so that we can have a competitive product? I think we have the better quality. We just need to figure out how to create some efficiencies to still make a profit off of it, knowing that we have to be in a very competitive market.
Thank you, Shahid, for both hats. We've got 3 more minutes. Is there another question? And this can definitely be one of the breakout groups if we want to keep talking about school sales. So is there another question?
In these last couple minutes, or comments about signs in schools?
I have a comment, just because I feel like talking.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, I know. So my comment is, what kind of structure can we implement through our local farmers in a statewide, massive statewide, togetherness to be able to eliminate that ability of us having to transport? You know what I mean? Where do we come together to build a transportation system? I think that might be a big obstacle for a lot of our farmers. How do we get it there? What do we do to get it there? So, but, that's the concept. What do we do? How do we do this? And I think that can eliminate if we have a big subsidized way of transporting our materials or our products with the best quality to eliminate that, feeling that we're not getting what it's worth.
I'm going to try to take a stab at that question. I don't have a complete answer, but it is something that AFSC has been working on, is the transportation. So a couple of things that we discovered. I talked with Roadrunner Food Bank, which is one of the largest food banks in New Mexico. They deliver food from the Middle Rio Grande, it's like Albuquerque south. So they have trucks on the road, and they know down to the penny what it costs them to run that truck, to pay for the driver, to pay for the fuel, to pay for the maintenance on the truck, to pay for the insurance on the truck. They actually figured it out to the penny. And they're willing to share the trucks with the farmers so that we're not taking on that cost. Because what they found was they deliver food to pantries and then they come back empty. And that's so wasteful. So they offered to backhaul, which means they'll put farmers' food in their truck if it's empty and backhaul. And we experimented with this in the South, where they were taking food from Anthony and Chaparral and bringing it back up to Albuquerque, no charge, which is awesome. The food bank for northern New Mexico is called Santa Fe Depot, and I met with them, and they were willing also, because they already have the trucks, they're already paying for it, and their mission is feeding people. They also were willing to use their trucks. talk with La Montanita, who you'll see today. They have 2 trucks that are always out every day. And again, they know what it costs, and they already pay for refrigerated truck and fuel and all that. So some of the farmers in this room have paid us a fee to get their food on La Montanita's truck, which is, again, cheaper than taking on all that cost by yourself. I've also talked to some of these companies that deliver to stores. So Caleb and Milo goes to the Taos County Economic TC-EDC kitchen, delivers to SIDS, delivers to Santa Fe, delivers to the South Eye Economic Development Center in Albuquerque. That truck is like, and the driver's just really nice, and was like, throw your food on my truck. So I think there could be a way to look at existing, and this is more sustainable financially and better for the environment than putting our own trucks out, would be how do we partner? So I've had these exploratory conversations, and we've piloted a few of the truck systems. It's not perfect, but it's interesting to try to leverage with partners on the transportation.
That's a big issue. Because even at the Public Education Department, we were presenting 2 weeks ago on, you know, the farm to school projects at the schools. That was a big issue, right? Because like Raton has a greenhouse that they want to get started. Springer wants to do more local food. And they were like, oh, can you bring us food? And I go, no, not really, man. I take it in my little green car to Wagamon, and that's, you know, if I leave from here, stop at the Santa Fe market and go straight to Wagamon, then everything's okay, because I have a couple of ice chests. But beyond that, you know, like all I can take you guys is maybe boxes of apples that wouldn't spoil, and then somebody would have to pick them up in Wagamon, take them to Springer and to Raton. But they were willing to do that, right? So I think that's a real big issue. So I think that's because right now what we're doing in Wagamon isn't sustainable. You know, I go over there every other week because we have family land up there, but I'm not making any money off of it other than that, you know, it pays for my gas, so that, you know, that's something out of it, right? I can go up there and take care of the family land without having to worry about gas as much. They are paying full price. They'll pay whatever I charge them. They'll pay, the school does. So I don't know if they got into that. I mean, they have never, I mean, I took them a box of peaches yesterday, $40. I thought they were gonna, they never, whatever, the lettuce, they pay $8 a pound for it, $7 a pound, whatever price I give them, they've never complained. And I think the AFSC funds helps right now, but I think that year that they started getting that local foods thing, and again, talking to your bookkeeper and the cafeteria person, because if they get bought into it, then it really doesn't matter what the cook says, because the person that's in charge of the nutrition and wellness program is the one that decides. So developing that relationship, but it is a big issue, because I know if I didn't take it in my car, how they're going to get it? You know what I'm saying?
Sophia has her own transportation system. All right, so we're gonna pause. I think we'll stop that conversation here, but we could continue it this afternoon, unless any last comments about school sales. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful to see where that is, and I'm hoping at our next statewide gathering, I'll be reporting back that all the money got used, that everyone did really well with the schools, and that we got more. So that's what I hope will happen next year. Patrick wants to say something, and then Maria.
I just wanted to point out, illustrate or highlight that these are the challenges that we're looking at tackling going forward. I often, a lot of times when we talk about this work, I describe, or my understanding is you kind of have to work, you know, as we have two hands, and we work with our left hand and we work with our right. And this morning was, I thought it was really nice to see everybody that I all spread out, talking about the work that they're doing in their communities, the work that they do to feed their communities. And production is we do that work with one hand. The other side, in terms of market development and civic engagement, this is the work ahead of us. Is lobbying, advocating the legislature for more subsidies, and this is not this is realistic, because the food the food that's available that we're competing with, that's subsidized too. That's subsidized at a broad federal level. That's subsidized through unfair labor practices. That's subsidized on a lot of different levels. So what we're asking is to level that playing field. But this is the work that's ahead of us. A is figuring out streamlining these administrative processes so that it's not so labor intensive for these small districts to do business with small farms, and also to, I mean, really, if we want the state of New Mexico to value their children and value the farmers in the state, and acknowledge that there is a lot of economic opportunity and a lot of public health opportunity if they just invested a little bit more. But that's the work that we are all going to have to do. You know, we're all going to have to show up at the state. We're all going to have to lobby our representatives. So I just wanted to add that, like, the challenges, we really want to highlight the challenges, not highlight, but we want to understand the challenges we're looking at and figure out how we're going to overcome that. And we want to do that together. That's the point of why we get together in these groups. It's to see what we're all doing across the different parts of the state, but to recognize how we're all part of this struggle. So I just wanted to add that.
And just to say that I really appreciate when people call me or call AFSC and say, you know, they don't seem to want to be paying what we're asking, so I'm calling to let you know there's a little clog in the system, right? And so we can try on our end, because we have relationships too, to try and push the way we can push, different than the way you can push because you're the producer. But we have a way to push too, and if we push both together, right, that buyer can come to a different understanding and open the purse string. So I appreciate hearing from people who are saying, oh, you know, it's September 30th and we haven't heard from the buyer yet, you know, what's going on? Well, let me make a phone call for you. So call me if there's some problems. Maybe there's something that we can do on our end to push too when people are having problems. I know last year Done let me know that up in Taos, it was a new person who wasn't familiar with these funds. And just because she had them in her account didn't mean she understood how to spend it, right? And so that's something that I could actually do, is call them and say, hey, I haven't seen any receipts from you. How's your spending going? And she could let me know where she's at, right? So I just want to say, if you are having problems and things are not, that money is just sitting there that should be in your pocket, you know, let me know and maybe we can do something on our end to get it spent.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, I'm going to look at the time. It's a little after 2:20, so we're only a few minutes behind. And we just have an end time of 3:30 so that people can have a break before boarding the bus. But this is the part of the gathering that people tell me is one of their favorite parts, which is this open space where you get to choose who you want to sit with and what you want to talk about. But what's really helpful is when people come back from the open space and share and report back. So we want to build in time for you to have a robust conversation, but then come back to the big room and share with us, because there'll probably be multiple topics that you're interested in, but you can only do one, so being able to hear back. So what I want to do now is, I got these markers, have people just shout out a topic that you're interested in, and we can start making groups. Do you want to, you have better handwriting than me, do you want to write?
And then every group is going to do some.
Okay, and then once we create groups, you'll take a piece of paper, and somebody will be the writer and kind of capture the conversation so you can bring it back. So, who has something that they're burning to talk about with other people here? I knew Matthew would go. Okay. A statewide composting program. So we'll just keep throwing out ideas, and then we'll see who wants to join that. Other things, Shahid. Okay. Southern New Mexico farmers having a chance to talk from the whole group there. That would be great. That would be great. Other folks that want to topics? Matthew.
Small seed banks around northern New Mexico or around the state, you know, in different sectors like Sandoval County,
Yeah.
County, Cass County.
So Matthew was saying, what about seed banks We heard different folks who have seed banks, if they could talk about saving seeds from around the state. Other ideas, John?
Something that I've been throwing out, I think, like a campaign. I've been talking a lot with other native community farmers and trying to create our own organic label as opposed to the USDA, which the application is very stringent and takes time. If that was something that wanted to be, you know, an undertaking, yeah, or even like local community type of organic labeling that would have the same whatever it is process, or but you know, yeah, instead of, you know, having to fall under a governmental procedure or bureaucracy type application, this would be more of a localized type organic labeling brand.
Any other thoughts? Are you seeing something up here that you want to go to? Any other ideas on what? Going once? So what we'll do is between now and 3, you'll have half an hour to find folks that you want to sit with and talk, and then at 3 o'clock we'll come back and report back until 3:30, and then you'll have a break and we'll board the bus. So let me read them out again. There could be a small group that talks about statewide composting. So there's an interest in talking about composting. Raise your hand if you're statewide composting. Matthew is. Other folks. Okay, so we'll see. We'll come back to that one. Southern New Mexico folks gonna come together. This is your opportunity. Okay, great. Seed banks. Who would like to be in a small group talking about seed saving and seed banks? Okay, couple hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good. That's a group. And then John's yeah, or there's room outside too. But the seed bank folks, it looks like it's these 2 tables. There's folks wanting to talk about seed banks. And then the campaign to create a locally controlled organic label or native organic label. Who would want to be involved in that one? Locally. Okay, a few folks there. Okay, great. So you guys kind of saw each other when you raised your hands? All right, so pick a corner. You have the hallway, this room, the patio. There's some shade underneath that tree. And then at 3 o'clock, we'll bring you back in. Okay, thank you. Oh, and everybody gets a piece of paper so that you can document. A paper and a marker. Come get a paper and a marker for your group. Nice. Lista? I'm so glad that this was I can tell people had really good conversations. All right. So now we're going to do report backs. I don't know if translation, are we good with translation? So we have a few minutes to share what happened at your table. Okay, so we'll start with the group what was your topic? Controlled organic labeling. All right, somebody want to stand up with Patrick? And
Okay, good afternoon, people. Let's all stand up and run in place for a little bit. Shake out the cobwebs. Wake up a little. Get some fresh air. Get that blood pumping. Because we're going to spend about 20 minutes on this. I'm just kidding. Our group discussed what we deem local controlled organic labeling as opposed to the USDA certification of organic labeling. We feel the state of New Mexico, with all the diverse traditions and cultures, we've been organic since day one, and it's been documented since day one. And so we kind of talked about, well, what is organic labeling? Basically what it boils down to is it's pesticide-free, insecticide-free type produce. So that probably means that some of the produce is going to have some worms. It's going to have some, it's not going to be perfect. Although some cases it can be. And there are some things that can help with that to ensure the produce is intact, like looking under the leaves for squash bugs every day. That ensures that that's taken care of, but that's a daily process. Principles of production practices and values. So if this is going to be something that we're going to make for our communities, or to be able to have this label, then there's a lot of these different types of values and principles that are going to have to be looked at and discussed and shared, and it's going to be a long drawn out process, I'm sure. But in the end, I think it will be well worth it, even if it's just here in the state of New Mexico, which we have the ability to do, I believe. And just like Nicaror was stating, that we're one of the last states that have this ability to grow on our own land without having any type of stringent bureaucracy type policies holding us to a certain degree, is what it seems. And I really didn't think about that until he said that, but it made sense. So culturally and traditionally grown doesn't necessarily just pinpoint one particular race, because the state of New Mexico is diverse. However, with our Hispanic and Native brothers and sisters, we've shared back and forth growing techniques, what works, what grows good here and there. And so, we've helped each other along the way, and we've sustained, and we've been resilient, and we've come to this point. So with particular demographic locations, certain things grow better in certain areas. Apples grow in Velarde, and then we have peanuts that grow better in Portales, chili and Chimayo. I know Hatch has the name because of the longer growing season, but with the procurement of regulations, it's going to be a really drawn out process, but I believe that this can be done. And so what Patrick was talking about that I had forgotten about was the fear with how the government entity, the USDA program, has put in place, if you don't test your water every week, or you can't have certain people touching or animals near, that's crazy. It's basically putting you in a box, and if you can't follow these guidelines, then you're not organic. Does an organic label really make that much of a difference? In terms of cost and selling, it can, but it's more than that. Patrick and I had a discussion with our group and he was sharing with us a group that went out and sang to their plants every day, and the amazing reaction that the plants had from that, just that, the singing and what it produced. And so if you have these big corporations, Monsanto or whatever they're called, I don't think any of their people are singing to their plants. But here in New Mexico, that love that you put into your crop and your produce makes all the difference. And so having to ship produce from the West Coast or the East Coast or wherever to feed your child that's 10 minutes away, it doesn't make any sense. So the farm to table, I think, has that same idea, that same mission, but it's keeping the food as fresh, the produce as fresh as possible to reach our children or our elders or even ourselves to eat the best, because we all deserve the best. So here we are. Here's a new campaign in front of a lot of us, and so I think we're going to be turning some heads here pretty soon in the next few months or years. So capture this moment where.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, okay. You want to hear a joke? Any questions? Any suggestions? Comments? Yes, sir.
For coming up with this, because this is one of the things that just last week at my farm we went through a mock organic certification for our farm, where we hired somebody to come down and go through all of the steps. And the most amazing thing to me after all of that was, we went through all of this record keeping, and probably half the day all we talked about was paperwork. And I said, so when do they test the soil? And when do they test the plant? Because it seems the reverse. It seems like all you need to do is test the soil and the plant. You're going to know what's been in there. You can carbon date it pretty far back. I said, when do they do that? He said, well, only if we think you did something wrong. I said, oh, okay, so this explains to me. I remember back in retail, we couldn't find organic blueberries, but since the USDA came in, almost the next day, we could find all these organic blueberries. I say, so they magically had the paperwork, and you never even checked the field, so automatically you have a way to allow big farmers to have USDA certification, but in a small farmer like me, I have to hire 2 people just to do paperwork, right? So we started thinking we got to come up with our own system, man, because we know what we're doing. Everybody that we know, that we grow that way, and you can go and see it. Like, I go visit them, I can tell. You can tell. If it's a clean row, they're not organic. It's like, oh, that's magic, right there, So I applaud it, and I think it's time, because they have that. They have local organic certifications. Even CCOF and Perth and all of those, they started that way, and I think we need to go back to localizing our certification and, let the USDA have what they have, and then we just, because we realize that when we talk to our customer, they don't care about certification. They care about personification. They want to see the people. They want to know that it's real, and we communicate with them, and they come and visit, and they can see, like, oh, yes, I can hardly find the food for the weeds. I say, that's my certification, So I applaud you in this effort, and I say, we need to get behind it and see how we can structure this, because I think I don't want to, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a realist. I believe that conspiracies are real. So when I look at the way that it's set up, it seems like it's almost set up to support one group, which is big and has resources, and put a lot of pressure on the group that doesn't have the resources. So thank you. Yes, sir. So all right. So this is, fortunately, we had some very eye-opening conversation about how just on a basic level we can try to support each other. We have some very common problems around pest management, fertilizing our soils, trying to find markets, making sure that we can get everything that we can to the market so we don't have to feed it to our goats and our chickens. Not that we don't love them, but they shouldn't be eating this stuff yet. Coming up with prices, making sure that our prices are based on real like costs and identifying like how much we should sort of be able to get for each product. Farm planning is something else that we think we need to try to provide a little bit better and maybe come up with some kind of training opportunities for especially in Chaparral where they seem to be a little bit further away from sort of the centers of economy. And then networking. I think it's important for us to continue to remember that we don't have to be isolated and sit on our own island. Like we need to be more, spend a little bit of time and effort to actually communicate and not just think it's going to happen because it's easy for me. I go through Chaparral a lot with my refrigerated van, driving through, looking for you guys, but you're hiding. You're not on the street. So maybe, after this we can start the dialogue a little bit and try to figure out how we can network better and I'll make sure that I get them as much information as I can on how to get to some of the local markets that I know are available. So, all right. Any questions? Yeah, anybody else want to speak from the table? You like to talk. Let me let you speak.
No, dice que any question o alguien que opine algo.
Okay.
All right, we'll go over to this group. What was the topic here? Seed banks? Okay, who's going to?
All right, so after a little discussion, we found out really the solution wasn't really any kind of seed bank. Seed banks have a specific drive, and they have you almost have to specialize in seed banking exclusively just to save seed. Like organizations like Native Seed Search have a specific goal of saving the diversity of seeds, so there's not really much of a need there. There's already farmers here. There's already farmers here that know what they're doing. But one thing that they felt like there could be done is provide trainings on seed banking to the farmers that are here, or seed saving to the farmers that are here, and they can save their own seed that are probably locally acclimated to their areas themselves, because we're full of like microclimates here in New Mexico. So. And one of the other farmers sharing from up north that it's also important to recognize that because those that are growing up north can't really take their seed, or they can take their seed down and we can grow it down here, but we can't take our seed from down below and bring it up there because it's just too short of a growing season there. So basically, yeah, just maybe hosting, having that resource here for the farmers that are gathering here, those are interested in saving seed, providing the resources, because it does get a little more complicated than you think it does as far as seed saving. And what else? Resources for even just like not only banking but storing the seed. What else? Is there anything else I'm missing? That's right. Yeah, so actually, you want to explain that?
Okay, sure. So maybe not exactly a seed bank, since that's brick and mortar and that takes resources, but maybe the idea of like a conceptual seed bank where it's just a directory of farmers that all are committed to doing more complicated training in their various regions to get some kind of qualifier. Like, I don't want to call it a certification because we're just finishing up having to talk through making our own local ones because we don't like the bureaucracy. But having some kind of qualifier that that we can rely on within our own state, and just a directory of names of farmers that practice seed saving at that standard that we can talk to.
So yeah, what the conclusion was is developing a website from sites that are already there And I've seen some of these websites where you can categorize it and you could break down like New Mexico into regions, so that like they all pointed out each of our regions has different abilities, different capacities. You know, there's some seeds that don't grow well in certain regions. So like a regional website that you just have like the New Mexico, you know, state thing, and then you click on it and then it pushes you into that region. And in that region, you have local farmers that have certain seeds that you can trade or you can buy or whatever. It's just like an inventory page that everybody can go visit that will make it easier for us to collaborate and to be able to find the produce and the seeds that are useful to us in our certain region. Anybody else? Any questions?
Like resource not just for farmers but probably just for like community members or like people who are beginning farmers that are interested and just want to know what kind of stuff can grow in their climate, because it sounds like the way that you guys have it broken down, you would have listed maybe what does well, so that would be like a really good resource for beginning farmers to go and look at, not just for people who are already farming to exchange seeds. So.
And as the time goes on, you know, you can adapt, you know, this website or whatever. I don't know, because I know, like, people say, why reinvent the wheel when there might be something out there ready for us, you know? So, you know, it might just be good, you know, as time goes on, you'll start, you know, now you just go for the seeds and what grows best, then you go into companion planting and what grows good with each other. So I think it would be good.
So another part of that is just realizing that some of us might not have the capacity for doing that. So just realizing that there's already resources there available. I was like, one day we suggest maybe that could be like maybe it doesn't have to be like a whole new website, but just like a section of the AFSC website, you know, that we can click on and see who's growing what where, even if it's just like a updated Word document of people growing what where, you know, and what they have available. And also utilizing resources like, I'm not sure how familiar people are with Native Seed Search, the seed bank in Tucson, but, you know, their whole mission is supposed to be, you know, helping communities like this, you know, learn these skill sets and bringing back those seeds to the communities. And they're really true to their mission. They're supposed to be doing that, hold them accountable, because they do have our seeds in there. Those are all native seeds in there, local seeds in there. So, and even myself, I offer to, tap them as a resource as well, to bring them up here and having them host trainings. Because I attended like a 7-day seed school that they put on for just saving any kind of seed you can. So, you know, having those resources there, holding them, and I know for a fact they do get funding to do stuff like that already too. So something we could tap them for.
Wagamon, because we started doing that little garden with the school. In Wagamon, we kind of identified a seed that we want to save, you know, because it's
kind of like a traditional thing that was there, like that banana pumpkin, right? I think that's real valuable for a community. Like for us in Wagamon, it's la calabacita mexicana, and it's not the calabacita mexicana that they sell in the stores now. It's kind of like a zucchini looking one. That's not the calabacita mexicana from northern New Mexico. The calabacita mexicana in northern New Mexico is like a little round squash, and like 4 inches or less. The little old ladies will pay whatever you want for it, because it's like a avocado tasting pumpkin, right? And they don't care. They don't care if it's like, I don't care if you use pesticide or not. If you want $3 for it, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? And right now that seed is real. We kind of messed up our seed last year because we've been saving that, and we're kind of in the process of we gave away some, then the rats where we had saved got to it, so we kind of lost our seed. But we're building it again this summer, and we've got a little box, and we're really protecting it. But just to let you know, this woman that I worked with about 20 years ago found out that I was working, and she knew I was from northern New Mexico and that I would have calabacita mexicana. She found me this summer, and I had like 4 seeds that I gave her. But so you got to do with what you got to do. But I think that makes sense, like having something that's doable maybe with like AFSC, because again, there are a lot of people, and it takes a lot of a lot of whatever. So for me, I'm interested in seeds, but more like what's the seed? In Wagamon, it's beans and calabacita mexicana. Well, beans, who cares? We can get them from any place. But la calabacita mexicana is kind of like that particular one is a dying one. So.
I just wanted to kind of highlight the inventory you kind of mentioned, was like making an inventory listing, and I think would be helpful to just know, like, between even just this group, since we've like learned from last year, and then as we're evolving, what is being like planted, what's there for like what's being harvested at each location, at least that we know of between AFSC. Because I think we could send like our schools to that, so if it's not just purchasing from us, they can see other networks that we're involved with in here, and they can, you know, maybe call them and make orders, or just something to bridge the sales between just this group right here as our own network.
Yeah, so part of this too, I think that would be really useful, that we kind of talked about too, is like having maybe regional trainings. So like a day a year where people can come and actually learn how to save the seed. Because that's what we were saying, like some farmers here, they just save their seed every year. They have a system of how they plant, you know, and then they know how much they are saving. And other farmers who are just getting into it or don't have that like generational knowledge have no idea about that, and then how to take a seed from like a corn and then properly dry it and then properly store it. So it'd be useful to kind of build that skill set among individual farmers, and then as individuals farmers learn, add them to the list. And then also it would be, I feel like it'd be useful then, because in just an example in my own life this summer is there was a grower in Albuquerque who had over 50 different kinds of garlic. And he was no longer able to grow it, and he was desperately seeking somebody who would be able to preserve these heritage types of garlic, many of which are unavailable to be found anywhere else, and he only had like a single head left. And finally we were able to meet each other, and I just so happened to have the space and the place where I could commit to not selling it, but instead just preserve it and grow it out and make it healthier. So in that way too, we could find these heritage seeds that are about to be lost that maybe somebody else could grow out and help save, to then build up that stock and then be able to make it available to other growers. That way we can kind of save these heritage stocks that oftentimes are just left or completely lost when people can no longer grow them.
I took notes of things that you said, so thank you so much for having these discussions and reporting back. It definitely helps AFSC because our work is done by invitation and our work is done from feedback from you. So these notes, hopefully I captured like what you're thinking would be supportive, what would be helpful. And as we think about our future work, we really hear that feedback, and I want to incorporate that. All right, so that closes the open space discussion. Was this good? Is it good to keep this kind of part of the gathering? Okay, cool. That's what we heard last year too. Awesome. When you get to know each other better. So let me just run through the rest of the day because we're coming to a break. And wow, we're like so on time. We caught up. That's awesome. Some people are staying the night here tonight because you've come a long way. So there'll be a time to check into your rooms here. And those of you who did come from really far, it's a real treat to stay at the resort. It's really nice. There's pools and hot tubs and stuff tonight. At 4 o'clock, that bus is going to pull up out by the front doors, and we'll be boarding the bus and heading to La Montanita for an hour tour there. Let me just show you a quick. And then we'll go from there to dinner. The bus will take you to dinner. And then we'll come back here. So that's the plan. We love doing a tour. So every year we've done tours. We've done tours of the Soilutions compost. We've done tours of farms. We've done tours of commercial kitchens. So we picked something different this year, La Montanita. You're going to be in the warehouse. I know you guys have been in the stores probably, but this is the actual warehouse. They say that the largest buyer of local food, they buy 1,100 from 1,100 different local folks. That's not all food. That could be like hand cream and stuff. But they have some programs to support farmers that might be useful to find out about. And they have trainings that they're offering. So that'll be all that tour. So be ready to interrogate them or question them or find out what they can do for you. So that's again at 4. So you have a little break right now.